What is going on, Michigan fans? I'm Clayton Sayfie with EJ Holland. We're from the Wolverine.com. Go ahead and use the promo code Blue60 over at the Wolverine.com. Gets you 2 months of our premium content for free. And we appreciate our sponsors, Lewis Jewelers, for making this video possible. We're going to break down the 5 things that we learned about Michigan football recruiting in the last month, in the shortened month of February. And there was a lot. It was kind of action-packed. And we're going to kind of recap some of that. We'll start with Michigan's defensive tackle issue that is no longer an issue because Michigan was able to close with Rayshawn Benny, the Rivals 100 D tackle out of Oak Park, Ike Iwuna, who is the 3-star defensive tackle from Garland, Texas, and then even George Rooks, the 4-star from out east. Michigan able to close with all 3 of them at the end of the 2021 cycle and really turn that into one of the strengths of that class.
Yeah, it seems like it's so far away. Like National Signing Day just happened last month, but it seems like ages ago that Michigan did that. But no, it was a really strong close to the cycle. It was about as great as you could have imagined if you're a Michigan fan. You know, you close with your top overall remaining target in Rayshawn Benny. You get a 4-star athletic kid in George Rooks who can be an end or a tackle. You get Ike Iwuna, who's already at 290 pounds and will easily play at over 300 pounds. And so that's a great trio right there, especially after, the early period, things looked really bleak. It looked like George Rooks was leaning towards Penn State. Benny was obviously committed to Michigan State. Nobody knew who Ike Iwuna even was. And so, they end up closing with all 3 after just landing a guy like Dominic Jadis, a 2-star prospect during the early period, who was the only true projected inside guy. Now you have these big 3 on board. I mean, landing Benny was tremendous. It was the best recruiting job the staff did all of last cycle. And I think all 3 of those guys will have a chance to play fairly early in their careers, with Benny likely being the most ready to make an immediate impact. So it was a great close to the cycle, and I think Michigan's 2021 class is ready to go and ready to kind of help change that culture and usher in the new era in Ann Arbor.
Yeah, it's amazing what those lands did for that class because at first it looked like a highly ranked class that didn't have everything solidified when you look at corner and you looked at defensive tackle. Well, now it's just kind of corner was weak, but corner looks like it's going to be good in 2022. So I think Michigan is kind of very happy with where things stand on that front. But sticking with defensive tackle, we learned that Alex Van Sumeren will be decommitting. Kind of comes in conjunction with his brother, Ben Van Sumeren, who was a 3rd-year linebacker at Michigan last year. He decides to transfer with the new defensive staff coming in. He was kind of buried on the depth chart a little bit. He wanted to move positions to the inside linebacker, and they thought he was a fit at outside. He moves on. He actually going to Michigan State, which is a crazy move for a Michigan player, but Alex Van Sumeren decides to move on. Your thoughts on that as that's kind of in the rearview mirror now?
Well, it was a tough situation with his brother obviously transferring, and not only transferring, but like you said, going out to Michigan State. That's a murky situation anytime you have family involved. And I think, that definitely played a big role in Alex's decision to decommit. Alex always wanted to visit other schools, but at the same time, I don't think he was close to decommitting until, obviously his brother decided to transfer out of the program. So from that aspect, it's obviously not ideal to lose him because of Ben, but I don't think Ben is good enough to, try to beg to stay to keep Alex. So, Michigan had a great close to the 2021 cycle, like we just mentioned. So it kind of softens the blow. Alex is a really good player. He's a definite top 250 guy, if not a top 150 guy nationally. So, it's hard to find defensive tackles in the Midwest, and Alex was a high level guy at a position that's definitely hard to recruit. So it sucks from that aspect, but at the same time, it was one of those situations where I think it was a little bit out of Michigan's control. So it's really tough to judge this recruitment and this decommitment, but I think Michigan will be just fine. I think they'll, find some guys in 2022. And like I said, it softens the blow that they had such a great close to the 2021 class. Had they not done that, had they just stuck with Dominic Jadis and missed on those guys late in the cycle, then we would be talking about a huge problem. But because of that close, I think that the effect for Michigan is pretty minimal at this point. Though again, I do. That's not to dismiss Alex. I think Alex is a really, really good prospect. I just think that with the family situation, with the close to 2021, it's probably best for both parties to move on.
Going from some quote unquote bad news to some very, very good news, Michigan was able to close with 5-star corner Will Johnson, which is huge news. And really, even earlier in that month, in February, maybe it wasn't going to be the case. Maybe in January, it wouldn't have been the case. But he decided to not only move up his timeline, but move it up so that he could commit to Michigan, the place that he really always wanted to be and wanted a reason to go to Michigan. He found his reason, clicked with the new staff, including Maurice Linguist, who would be his position coach at Michigan, also the co-defensive coordinator. Kind of that big fish for Michigan. We talked about it last cycle and the similarities between him and Donovan Edwards, another in-state kid. Donovan chose, on the last day of the early cycle to choose Michigan. Will Johnson's early. He's going to lead the class going forward. So obviously just a huge, huge land for Michigan.
Yeah, going back to last cycle, you look at Don, and if Michigan would have been able to get Don on board at the same time that they got Will on board this cycle, he would have been a tremendous leader for the class. And I think maybe the 2021 class would have looked a little different. Obviously, Donovan decided to wait. Will decided to go ahead and commit early. He's not only the big fish overall, but he's an in-state kid. He's a guy that's very respected in his home state, and he's a guy that other kids nationally want to play with. So I feel like getting Will on board early is not only great from a talent perspective. Obviously, he's a 5-star kid, one of the top cornerbacks and top overall prospects in the country that can come in and make an immediate impact. We've talked about him over and over: tall, long, physical, Richard Sherman-esque. But I think even maybe more importantly, he's your class leader. He's your face of the franchise. He was just on a group call with a 4-star cornerback target, Miles Pollard, earlier today. He's been working behind the scenes on some more high-level guys like Keon Saab and Walter Nolan and all these big national guys. So, and then on top of the local guys as well, like Dylan Tatum. So I think Will is massive, again, from a talent standpoint, but also from a class leadership standpoint. And so it was a great job by the staff closing with him, despite all the movement on staff, despite the Harbaugh extension drama, the terrible season. At the end of the day, Will did want to be a Michigan man. He grew up around the program. His father, Dion, is an ex-Wolverine. And his art was just always with Michigan. And I think it was the same thing with Donovan Edwards. They just had to give both of these guys a reason to commit. And so Don bought into the vision of what Michigan sold him, and so did Will. He really believes in the future of the program. And the big thing he's told other prospects is that he's ready to personally help lead a change in the narrative for Michigan. So getting Will on board was huge for multiple reasons. And he's a guy you're not going to have to worry about. He's solid. He's ready to lead the class. He's not going to waver. Very similar to J.J. McCarthy in that sense. You're not going to have any drama with Will. He's completely locked in. And like I said, he's the face of the franchise. So we'll see how he does on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, not a bad face of the franchise, a number 13 player in the country, the number 4 corner, and a 5-star, and somebody who gets the program, gets Michigan, obviously, with his dad having played there. Moving on to the next thing, Mo Linguist, it kind of ties in to Will Johnson. It will tie into the next thing that we learned, the final thing after, a little teaser. But Mo Linguist just continues to be the real deal on the recruiting trail, being able to land commitments from Cody Jones and Taylor Groves, 2 4-star D-backs out of Tennessee. And Will Johnson, obviously, he was huge with him. And just overall, the fact that he is just a grinder on the recruiting trail, and not just a grinder, but a guy who is a talented recruiter that knows how to close, something that Michigan didn't necessarily have outside of Sharon Moore on its last kind of wave of staff members, now bringing in 6 new guys. But he's just the real deal here.
Yeah, it takes a special something as a recruiter to close. You know, you can be a really good recruiter and keep your team in the mix with top level guys, but some guys just have that closing factor and others don't. And I think Mo Linguist obviously does. This was his first full month on the job. Remember, he didn't get hired until, around mid-January. So his first full month on the job, he landed 2 4-star prospects, Cody Jones, Taylor Groves, and he helped close the door with Will Johnson. And honestly, behind the scenes, Will Johnson had set a commitment date of March 29th. So he moved up his commitment date by an entire month. And a big reason for that was Mo Linguist. So you connected with him extremely well. Like I said, Will's already getting on group calls with him to help get other guys on board. And you look at Cody Jones and Taylor Groves. These are 2 guys that Michigan fans weren't really familiar with because they were so new to the board. Linguist had just offered them a couple of weeks before earning their commitment. So Michigan already having 3 defensive back commits and 3 high-level defensive back commits, 2 4-star to 1 5-star. I mean, it wouldn't be surprising if we're doing this video next month and the defensive back class is full. It's done because Mo Linguist can close with guys. He can close with elite talent. Like he said, he's the real deal. I think he's obviously become, no disrespect to Sharon Moore, who's still a very, very good recruiter and one of the top guys nationally, but I think Linguist has become now the ace that Michigan needed on the recruiting trail. And overall, just the staff is young, hungry, aggressive. And I think Mo Linguist is kind of helping them feed off of his energy. I think you've even seen guys that weren't as active, like Sean Nua, become more active. I think, great recruiters bring out the best in their teammates, kind of like, a football team. And I think he's bringing out the best in the other assistants on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, I listened to his interview on John Jansen's podcast, In the Trenches. If people haven't listened to that, go listen to it because I'm listening to it and I'm like, okay, I can tell why he's such a great recruiter. He is very, like, his words, he's very well spoken. He, kind of knows what buttons to push, it seems like. And he was talking about recruiting and just how it's all relationships. And he seems like an elite connector with just human beings. And I think that translates to being a elite recruiter. The last thing ties in, like I said, with Mo Linguist, who has deep ties, especially in the South, with people all across the recruiting world. Tennessee is now a priority for Michigan, and it's kind of a state that is emerging as one of the more talented states now. But we mentioned Cody Jones and Taylor Groves a couple times. Walter Nolan, who you alluded to earlier, the #1 defensive tackle in the class of 2022, the #3 overall recruit, according to Rivals.com. Miles Pollard, another guy. Other recruits in Tennessee that are now kind of giving Michigan maybe that extra look because of Mo Linguist.
Yeah, I mean, Tennessee is a state that I always felt like Michigan should have recruited harder. Even last cycle, I said, you just got Junior Colson. Why aren't you recruiting more guys in the state of Tennessee? It's actually not that far away from Ann Arbor. I think these guys do have more SEC looks because Tennessee is, in that border area of SEC country. But at the same time, it's not, very far from the Midwest. It's just, state over from being in the Midwest. So it's close enough for guys to look at for Tennessee guys to look at Michigan. Obviously, Michigan's a blue blood program. Again, they just landed Junior Colson out of Tennessee. And so I think that with Linguist ties, with getting such a big guy out of the state last cycle in Colson, the opportunity is there for them to land more talent in Tennessee. And you already have, a couple of guys in the class with Jones and Groves. Jones is out in Memphis, which is on the opposite end of Tennessee, closer to Arkansas. But you have a prime Nashville guy where most of the concentration of talent is in the state of Tennessee in Taylor Groves. And Junior was a Nashville guy too. And so I think those guys can help lead the way. I think Linguist's ties there are definitely helping. And so you have more big time Tennessee guys on the board, two Nashville guys, Keaton Wade and Miles Pollard, are very, very high on the board. Keaton Wade being a Rivals 250 linebacker, Miles Pollard being a 4-star corner. I think right now Michigan is really building up some momentum with Pollard. They just made the top schools list for Wade not too long ago. And then you have Walter Nolan, who's kind of on that side of the state with Cody Jones, who is becoming more and more interested in Michigan. Will Johnson really helping with that. Ron Bellamy, who's a Louisiana native, actually knows some of his coaches. And so he's helping out Linguist with that recruitment as well. And I think that Michigan is poised to land some more talented recruits out of the state of Tennessee. It's there for the taking. And you look at their in-state programs, right now Tennessee is a mess. Vandy's not getting really super high level guys. So again, the opportunity is there for Linguist and company to continue to pull top guys from the state of Tennessee.
We learned quite a bit in this past month, and we'll do it again next month. The 5 things that we learned in the month of February. Michigan kind of really getting it done right now on the recruiting trail. You can follow all of it at thewolverine.com using the promo code Blue60 for 2 months of our premium content for free. We'll see everyone next time.